January 27th meeting of the Peters Township Council. Roll call, Mr. Lauer.
Mrs. Merrill.
Present.
Mr. Steigel.
Here.
Mr. Arcuri. Here. Mr. Ball.
Present.
Mr. Kozer.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Berquist is here. He's in the restroom.
For the record.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You gotta go, you gotta go. Okay, the first item of business this evening is a public hearing on a conditional use. Anything before I read the opening statement?
Nope.
Okay, the opening statement. The purpose of this evening's public hearing is to accept comments on a conditional use request filed by 519 Properties LLC to develop an office warehouse project on property located on 430 Venetian Road. A variety of methods were used to advertise tonight's public hearing, which include placing an advertisement in the Observer Reporter on Monday, January 13th and January 20th this year, placing notice of a public hearing on a township website and cable television. All property owners within 600 feet of the subject site received written notice, and the property was posted. Council will not be acting on this matter this evening. Council has 30 days from the conclusion of this hearing to render a decision. Because this request is a conditional use, Council may add reasonable conditions relative to the specific proposal and location. Prior to accepting public comments, Township staff will be making a brief presentation on the matter, followed by a presentation by the applicant, after which Council may ask questions, and then we will have comments from the audience. This is a legislative hearing. A legal record will be produced by a stenographer. Anyone that wishes to speak will need to be sworn in. I would ask that anyone that wishes to speak, please stand now, and the stenographer will swear you in. Does anybody wish to give any testimony in this hearing?
Certainly, if the developer is going to speak, or if someone's speaking on the developer's.
Anybody else? You can be sworn in. Raise your hand. The stenographer will swear you in.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You speak at the appropriate time. Thank you. Okay. Comments?
Well, under the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code, a municipality can designate that a particular use provided for in the zoning ordinance be subject to an enhanced level of review and approval by designating that use is subject to conditional use approval process. The Peters Township ordinance prescribes a set of additional regulations that are applicable to specific types of uses regarding conditional use approval. In addition, as Mr. Ball has stated, the township has the right to attach such reasonable conditions and safeguards in addition to those expressed in the ordinance as it deems necessary to implement the purpose of the zoning ordinance. Under the conditional use process, the governing body is required to have a public hearing, and that's what we're doing tonight. And the purpose of that is to obtain information to help guide the development of the conditions. In addition, Peters Township solicits a recommendation for the Peters Township Planning Commission, which is contained in the manager's report. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Zook, who can quickly go through what's being proposed and how it's affected by our regulations.
Thank you, Paul. The applicant in this case, as you said, Mr. Ball, is 519 Properties LLC. Status of the applicant is they own the property. They've owned it since April of 2017. The property is 430 Venetia Road. It's known as Lot 9B of the Venetia Industrial Plan, which was recorded back in 1992. The property size is 1.826 acres. It's zoned West Venetia Road Mixed-Use Corridor. That zoning was in place under Ordinance 657 that was adopted in November of 2005. Prior to 2005, this property was zoned industrial. The requested action is for conditional use approval to develop an office warehouse project. In this zoning district, this type of use is a conditional use. We'll get into that a little bit more specifically. If we can jump back to that other slide. Important to note here that the surrounding zoning and use, to the north across Venetia Road from this site is it's zoned woodland protection. That's the Great Meadows single-family residential neighborhood. To the south is land in Nottingham Township that is zoned R3, multi-suburban residential. There's nothing really back there except the Peters Creek and a railroad track. To the west and east, to the west we have Lighthouse Electric has a logistics office warehouse operation there. And to the east is Venetia Wholesale Landscape Supply Facility. This section of Peters Township has access to all public utilities, including public water and public sewer. This area of Peters is served by the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority. Real quickly, the property is actually a vacant piece of property that has a PennDOT-approved paved driveway access to Venetia Road at this point. Topographically, it just gently slopes from Venetia Road back towards Peters Creek. The back half of the property is within a 100-year floodplain. As Paul mentioned, in addition to our West Venetia Road mixed-use corridor dimensional regulations such as setbacks, building height, floor area ratio, in our zoning ordinance, we have section 44601, and this section sets out 10 specific conditions for an office warehouse project in Peters Township. And I'll get into those a little bit later. As Paul said, and I think Mr. Ball said, we notified all property owners within 600 feet. We've not had anyone come in to see us on this. We have the plans here. Usually folks come in and ask us questions. We've not had any of that in this case. This conditional use stage that we're in, this gives Planning Commission and Council an opportunity to look at these plans, these conceptual site plans, conceptual building elevations, and gives the Planning Commission and Council an opportunity to establish conditions above and beyond what we have in our zoning ordinances, in our subdivision and land development regulations. What the applicant has provided to the township is the Harshman CE Group, their civil engineers, have shown us in 2 site plan layouts that they can meet all our existing mixed-use corridor zoning requirements, setbacks, building height, parking, buffering is important. They've shown us conceptually that they can meet all those rules. Planning Commission at their January 16, 2020 meeting reviewed this conditional use application. As Paul said, they are required to make a recommendation to you, and at their meeting they reviewed the proposal and recommended the 10 conditions that are listed in our zoning ordinance and under section 44601. They did amend condition number 7 of section. They added at the end of all aspects of the operation shall take place indoors. Planning Commission added including vehicle, equipment, and material storage, which I thought was a good addition to add to that condition. Planning Commission also added 4 additional conditions. Those are the site layout provide Peters Township Fire Department access to the rear and sides of the building, or all buildings be equipped with a fire suppression system or a sprinkler system. The fire department also wants a public hydrant somewhere out along their frontage. That's condition 12. Condition 13 deals with the exterior building materials. If we could just show, they were showing Planning Commission and staff a building that is 90+% metal siding. That's not what we're looking for here. So Planning Commission added condition 13. The exterior building materials on the front, side, and rear facade when facing Venetia Road. The interior of the site or a residential district shall be faced with brick, stone, or other suitable materials as approved by Planning Commission and Council. The last condition Planning Commission recommended was this conditional use approval is for concept only and not any specific site plan layout or building design. A complete site plan must be submitted in accordance with all township ordinance requirements and be approved by both Planning Commission and Council. So with that, I will turn it over to the applicant unless council has questions.
And if I could just add one thing. Subsequent to the recommendations from the Planning Commission and having had a chance to sit down with Mr. Zook and review this, it's my recommendation that council impose an additional condition, and that is that requires that all structures have pitched roof that are deemed compatible with the surrounding residential developments. What they show on their drawings is in fact a pitched roof, but there's nothing that requires that, and these are only conceptual in nature, and so therefore I think it's important that we establish that a pitched roof is required.
I have a question. This parcel is zoned,
West Venetia Road Mixed-Use Corridor.
okay, and what types of things could be utilized at that, in a facility like that? And do you know what they plan on doing?
I don't know exactly
I
what-
can't look at the short term. I want to see what possibly could be there in the future.
Well, I don't know exactly what they're proposing there, but they've indicated to us that it would be for plumbing contractors, electrical contractors to use for their operations. You're asking me also what else is allowed in there? It's very limited on what could be in an office warehouse type of use. I can't cite exactly, sitting here, I don't have my zoning ordinance in front of me, but it's very limited.
Well, at some point,
We'll include that in our report when we come back to council with this.
But no manufacturing,
No manufacturing,
no process.
correct. Those types of rules are in our existing
I had
zoning.
another question too. On the photograph I have, which was, I think, the first one you had up, right in that upper corner, next to it, up in that upper right-hand corner of lot 430, where the line is with 446, it looks like there's, I don't know what that is there. What are those?
You go to the aerial? Oh, that was dirt that was stockpiled there. If you go to the aerial.
It looks like big cement things.
That was, I think that was dirt stockpiled there for a short period of time by the owners of the property.
Okay, so
That's no longer there.
thank you, that's all I have.
I did have a question. The picture in the docket, the layout of the buildings is different than what you had shown here with the end one turned perpendicular. Not that it's an immediate issue, but which of those are they, do you think we're targeting?
Probably leaning toward, you can go to that, Paul, the next one. They're leaning toward that kind of layout. That gives fire department the access they're looking for. They're not even sure if it's going to be 3 buildings. It could be 2. It's still all depending on what council decides.
Okay.
Tom Campbell from CE Group on behalf of the client. As Mr. Zook alluded, property is laid out for mainly small contractors who come in, upstarts that are in the area, local guys that need a little bit more space for their new business, for their material, equipment, and what they may have to work out of these areas, stockpile their equipment, vehicles if they have them, materials that they need for a job, and then in the evening shut it all down and keep everything inside. That's the idea. Again, limited use.
Storage facility?
Interior storage for equipment for specific jobs.
Climate controlled or?
Most likely not. I mean, this is all going to be, depending on who the client is going to be, they may have pipe in there, they may have plumbing there, they may have wire in there if it's an electrical contractor. Those are the kind of things that the primary focus really.
But the warehouse will have air conditioning and heating.
Most likely.
Does the ordinance have prohibition of chemical storage?
Yes, yes, that's already covered.
So one of the points is that there would not be any outside storage, comment about vehicles. That would only potentially be during the day is what I'm getting.
Yes, as they move in and out, the parking spaces for clients and for anybody that's working with the owner. But there will be no overnight parking in those spaces.
No equipment stored outside.
Correct.
So there will be any parking requirements for this?
There is a parking requirement, but it's I think it's like 7 or 8 spaces total. They're not anticipating having retail traffic, so to speak.
How many square feet approximately is each building?
Each building, I believe, is about 4,000 square feet, for a total of 12.
And with that, will the interior offices vary in size?
The way the buildings are laid out, each has about a 750 square feet of office space, including restroom, and so.
The reason I asked is because of the parking. If you have someone who'll be there all day or a couple people there, that may change what the
Parking.
requirement would be.
Certainly.
So A&S is a landscaper. They're not planning to store.
They're not, at this point, they're not intending it for their own use, no.
What was the question?
The A&S is the owner, and they're a landscape company. I was wondering whether they plan to use it for their own use for landscaping
Okay,
or
thank you.
plants or.
Yeah, you already have a landscaper next door, so they're not planning on moving in on their competition there, so.
Designated commercial warehouse space, I'm assuming it's sprinkled.
Not necessarily.
Right, so the first option that was presented with the buildings at about 10-foot spacing, that would require to be sprinkled, just due to the nature of how it's laid out. In meeting with the township and the fire department, they weren't too happy about that layout because of the tight spacing. So we asked about the second layout with the 20-foot in between, they're a little bit more lenient on that one, because they do have better access to the buildings. So, again, Mr. Zook said, we're not sure about the exact layout yet, whether it's 2 buildings or 3 buildings. It'll be no more than 3 buildings, because we're limited by space. We can only, move so much material due to the wetland. But we'd rather not have to sprinkle, because it is an extra expense. And with them asking to have a fire hydrant at the street, it is more suitable to have the normal spacing in between.
In fact, and signage-wise, it says just one
sign.
one monument sign, or,
If it's a freestanding sign, it has to be a monument style.
but will there be room for each tenant to have their name on it, or?
There would be. There's enough square footage there to allow that.
Mr. Zucco, one thing about the driveway, you talked about an existing driveway, and it doesn't actually line up directly with Great Meadows.
The site distance was not the best there, so they had to move it to, I think it's on the west side.
Okay. And then there is a requirement of buffering in the front so that the neighbors across the way have a little bit.
Correct.
There's a 100-foot buffer from the residential area across the street. The first building is right on that 100-foot line. There's also a 25-foot landscape buffer along Venetia Road, which is laid out. There is landscaping in accordance with buffer zone A in that area.
Thank you.
It would seem to me that if you're uncertain as to whether it is environmentally controlled, heated, particularly, the sprinkler would be somewhat problematic.
Correct.
I didn't hear that. What'd you say, Mr. Wilson?
Well, if the properties aren't heated at least, and he wasn't affirming that this was going to be
The office
environmentally
space will be air conditioned and heated. I'm not sure about the storage space
area.
that's remaining.
You'd have a hard time with sprinklers in unheated space. It would have to be probably a dry system.
Any other questions from council?
No, thank you.
Yeah, they will be heated.
Come up and introduce yourself.
I knew who he was.
But he wasn't sworn in.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Each unit, if it's divided up, or the whole unit, they all have heaters for each unit. All buildings will be heated.
You state your name for the record.
Scott Beer,
Spell that last name?
B-I-E-R.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience have any comments?
I move that we close the public meeting.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public meeting is closed.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving to the public portion of the meeting. Approval of the minutes from the reorganization meeting.
I move approved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, special reports. There are none.
Sure.
Sure.
I wanted to address council, I want to respond on a couple of the comments that we made at the last meeting. I'm going to take a little time to rewatch that meeting, make sure I completely understood what was being said there. I guess to start, I'd like to go back to December of 2017. At that meeting that year when we voted on the budget, I voted against the budget at that time. Nobody on this council made any comment about that whatsoever. Similarly, this year when we voted on the budget, I voted against it. I stated my reasons for it. Nobody on this council commented on that whatsoever. 3 weeks later, on Saturday, January 4th, council started to receive emails from various residents demanding the appointment of Mrs. Merrill to the chairmanship. Those continued through Monday. 11:10 then on Monday, January 6th, Mr. Burkus calls me to admonish me on my voting against the budget.
I wouldn't say it was a one.
Oh, I would say so, yeah. And I asked you, why you didn't say anything at that time. You told me because of your need, you were right in mind. So yeah, I'm not sure why you would vote on something in an impaired state, but that's neither here nor there. So Mr. Lewis begins his discussion, which Mr. Lewis, I'm extremely insulted by the way that you presented those comments. As I watched that over and over again, you basically presented Mrs. Merrill and I as being opposed to the well-being of this township. Sir, let me tell you, I have done more for this township than anybody on this council. I've given more time, more blood, more sweat than any of you. I don't appreciate you or anybody here questioning my opinion on anything. This is not, I think Mr. Brooks summed it up best last week. This is a democracy. I voted my opinion. Some other comments that you made that I found kind of ironic was when you said you over and over are out looking for people to fill seats in this council. There were 3 people that ran for 2 seats this past year. You didn't step down. Similarly, 4 years ago, there were 3 people that ran for 2 seats. Mr. Kozer was one of them, clearly capable of filling that seat. Mr. Harry Verlato was a second, but was clearly capable. You still chose not to step down. So it seems to me that the issue is that you feel that you know what's best for this township. Anybody that disagrees with you, you're going to attack. So I just want to tell you now, I'm going to, I don't feel intimidated by you one bit. I'm going to keep presenting my opinions. I'm going to vote the way my heart directs me. And that's just how it's going to be. You don't like it? I got 2 more years. I'll decide that if I'm going to like it.
And Gary, my whole message was about a collaborative effort. And to me, I understand that there are elements in the budget that probably all of us don't like. And at the time those issues come up, to me, that was when we would take our position and say no. I, quite frankly, have supported the concept of the fire department and the advancement of what we need to try and achieve there. And, I'm on board with you there with how in the world we're going to be able to accomplish that. But
The other comment that was made by you and Mr. Burkus is that there was ample opportunity to express our displeasure. At the budget hearing, when we had discussion of the pool, we had the fire chief here to discuss what he wanted going forward. We spent an hour talking about that pool. I sat there respectfully, listened to it. Chief McLaughlin stands up. First thing Mr. Burkus says is make it quick. That's the type of mentality that we're dealing with here.
All right, well, I
don't think there's much
respect,
else I can say about it.
I respect your comments.
Me too.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay, I appreciate everybody's comment, and we do all have a right to our opinion. Okay, we can move on. Special reports, we have none. Audience comments is the time at which anybody in the audience has the opportunity to make a comment of any non-agenda item within the 5 minutes. So if anybody has a comment, please come forward, state your name, and state your business. Sir.
I normally don't come to these kinds of things. My name is Tim Shannon. I'm a small business owner. I live here on Pinewood Drive in McMurray or Peters Township or Cannonsburg. I'm not sure what it's called. That's a joke. I look at the agendas for these meetings and I get a little nervous. I'm a small business owner. I pay 47.37% in taxation. That's my April 15th number before my accountant sharpens his pencil. But it's a lot of money. And every time I turn around and look at these agendas, by the way, thank you, I see a new fire station. I see police cars. I see a pickup truck. Why do the cops need a pickup truck? I see, a high school for $110 million. And I get a little nervous because I don't want to pay 48% in taxation. So I would ask you folks, before you hire anybody else, and I've seen that on tonight's agenda, stop and think about it. Is it a need or a want? If it's a need, by all means, we got to have it. If it's a want, let's stop back a little bit and think about if we actually have to have it. Stanford's Business School estimates that for county, state, and municipal, the liability on just retirements for these people nationwide is about $1.25 trillion. That's with a T. That's in today's dollars. In the next 5 years, that's going to go to about $5 trillion. If you don't believe me, you can look up the New York Times. I line my parrot's bird cage with it, but it's there anyway. It's a lot of money. So you're not just hiring people with Cadillac pension plans, but also with Cadillac salaries to go along with it. Also, too, you've got people who double dip. They're both in the fire department and in the police department, so there's double pensions there. There's a lot of that kind of cross-pollinization, maybe not here, but other places. My biggest fear is that we run out of money and we don't have enough to cover these people later on down the road. And if we can look at Detroit, we can look at Pittsburgh, that's the kind of situation those folks are in. So please, folks, I beg you, as a taxpayer, think about why we're hiring people and if we truly need them.
Sir, my email's on the township website. You shoot me an email, I'll give you a call, I can tell you everything you want about the fire department.
I don't know. I mean, we just bought a new, fire truck? We traded one in, it had 800 hours on it? Come on.
You also had a gentleman that died because he...
Admittedly.
Your residence is within pretty close proximity to the fire station. So you tell the people in the Hackett area that they are entitled to the same fire protection that we have.
I admit that. But here's the thing. Can you show me a house that's burnt down lately?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really? Where? I haven't seen it.
There's two.
Two of them? Then I stand corrected, sir. I apologize because I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it.
There was one, probably $700,000 house on Windermere burned to the ground.
One on Claire.
On Village Drive. A week later, I was in that fire. We saved that one. It was on Claire Lane. A gentleman passed away in it.
Not to cut you off, but the rumor, around the neighborhood that I live in, it's like they think you folks suffer from Upper St. Clair and B. So if you know what I mean?
Upper St. Clair does not have.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's an argument that I've made with regard to the pool owner that says, we need to have what
No, we
Upper St.
don't.
Clair has. Well, Upper St. Clair doesn't have what we have in terms of fire protection.
Public safety.
Public safety.
I'll drive them down to Cannonsburg Pond there, and they can swim there all they
You're
want.
more than welcome to join the fire department and take volunteers on.
I'm too fat.
No, We have found guys in the
Yeah. But if I can address one other thing that I just want to be clear about. You are absolutely correct that municipalities across the United States have problems with their pension programs. That is not the case in Peters Township. Our pension programs are fully funded. In fact, the administrative employees and the firefighters all have what you would know as a 401k.
Yes.
We would call a defined contribution plan. So those challenges that other communities face is not something that's being faced by Peters Township. And I'm not saying this because it's self-serving, but the reality is, the reason that occurs here is that for the length of time that I've been here, this council has always been cautious when it comes to compensation, and including things like pension benefits. So you don't have that problem here that you would see in a lot of other communities.
Then I thank you folks for that, because it scares the hell out of me, to be candid with you. It really does. I have friends that live in McKees Rocks where they're sending out building municipal code people to start shaking down homeowners and stuff, because you got a crack on your sidewalk, that's $200 a day. They're looking for any way to collect money. And
Do you know the last time Peters Township raised taxes?
please tell me it was decades ago.
It was 2007, I voted against that budget.
Yeah, but not that bad.
We didn't.
One mil, 20 years.
20, 30 years?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I just, honest to God, as a small business owner, I just don't want to wake up and pay more money. This high school's scaring the daylights out of me.
Well, that's not our.
I hear you, yeah.
It's not
You
us.
can go to that meeting.
Oh, no, I'm not going to deal with the mums and the pops.
No, but I would just say I understand everything you're saying, but, and because all of us pay taxes too, but it's, Peters Township has been cited for how many years in a row now, Paul, in the state, as one of the top townships in the state in terms of fiscal responsibility. We, the council, spend an awful lot of time with a very, very competent staff trying to put our budget together, trying to make sure that we don't spend money on things that we really don't need to spend it on. And we take it serious. And we take your comments seriously.
Then I appreciate that. I just want to let you folks know that I get the agendas, I literally go, oh my God, they're spending money on what again? New radios. The radios they got must work. Why are they buying new radios?
Actually, they don't.
That's the
Then let's get new, again, need and want.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
It's a need.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Unfinished business, there is none. Moving to new business, we have a consent agenda. The purpose of a consent agenda, on which tonight there are 6 items. These are items that can be approved very quickly in one motion because these are items that are routine, they come along, and we don't anticipate any great discussion on them, but if any of the members of council or the audience would like to remove an item from the agenda and discuss it separately, we'll be very happy to do that. Items on this evening's consent agenda include a special permit for St. David's Church to operate the Peters Township Farmers Market from May 20th to September 30th on Wednesdays from 3 to 7 p.m. Second item is a special permit for St. Benedict's Church authorizing trail banners and off-premises temporary signs for their fish fry. Third item is a resolution changing authorized signers on a certificate of deposit at Washington Financial. The fourth item is a resolution changing authorized signers on checking accounts at PNC Bank. Fifth item is acceptance of a 2019 survey of financial condition. And the sixth item is exoneration of Ryan Jarosky and Jordan Tax Service from their obligation to collect 2019 Peters Township property tax. Are there any items that any member of council would wish to have removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately?
I think we talked about this before, the characterization of the farmer's market as Peters Township Farmer's Market. The township has no sponsorship or involvement per se, and I guess I would have much preferred it to be simply St. David's Farmers Market, which I'm very much in favor of. But
How many years has it been Peters Township now? Probably 3.
3.
Two,
Yeah, I think
been
quite frankly, I think it's referring to a location as opposed to a sponsorship. So.
all right.
Well, the application says St. David's Episcopal Church, Peters Township.
What you're permitting is not the name of it, you're permitting.
We had this discussion before.
Yeah.
Is this the same permits that we always give them in the church?
Yep.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries 7-0. The next item is the authorization for the Township Solicitor to enter into a settlement agreement with Edward and Susan Courtney.
As council is aware, I conducted an email survey on January 10th to seek authorization to allow John Smith in the name of the township to enter into a stipulated settle agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Courtney concerning the demolition of the building located on Valley Brook Road. A majority of council responded affirmatively to that. What we need to do, though, tonight is to affirm that authorization by an official motion of council at a public meeting.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Discussion, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Appointment to the Peters Township Youth Commission.
After the last meeting, we discovered that where we appointed new people to the Youth Commission, we failed to reappoint the peoples whose terms are expiring. Those are listed in the manager's report, and it's,
Do we need a separate motion for each?
no.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Sorry about
We
that.
missed that.
Well, I'll take the blame for that.
Appointment to the Peters Township Zoning Hearing Board.
Good.
No, I move that we appoint Robert Schooley as a member of the Peters Township Zoning Hearing Board.
You all, as an alternate.
As an alternate.
As an alternate, yes.
Second.
Discussion, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
I'd like to say we had a lot of great candidates again, and hopefully we'll find positions for the candidates we interviewed tonight.
It's one of the characteristics of our boards. We have some really great people. Award of a contract under the COSTARS Cooperative Purchasing Program to C. Harper Auto Group for the purchase of a police vehicle.
The Peters Township 2020 budget includes an appropriation of $44,000 for the purchase of a police vehicle. This vehicle will replace an existing car. Included in the docket is a quotation from C. Harper Incorporated for $39,329. The purchase is being done under the COSTARS program. There will be additional equipment that will be needed before the car can be placed in service, but we believe it will be under the appropriate amount. And so therefore, it's my recommendation that Peters Township Council approve an award of a contract to C. Harper Incorporated under the COSTARS program for the purchase of a Ford Explorer in the amount of $39,329.
Paul, who handles the wiring these days?
We,
Ibis Tech.
yeah, that's what, because the name.
Ibis Tech in Butler.
Yeah, they're handling everything with regard to the preparation of that car before it goes on.
Could you clarify, Mr. Lauer, in the body of the letter that Chief Grimes sent, he explained that he would be taking the new vehicle
Yes,
and the other one would be rotated.
right.
So when you talk about adding additional things, he was talking about patrol ready. Will this new vehicle that he will have also be made patrol ready immediately?
It will have to be made patrol ready because the chief's car has radios, it has lighting in it. So, yes.
So what we're replacing is.
We're replacing,
a vehicle that's the same as this.
yes.
So it's not to be used for police patrols and all of that.
It's going to be used by the chief of police, and one of the reasons that's occurring is that we can't not get right now a police interceptor package in a Ford Explorer. And it's the chief's opinion, and I would agree with him, that the best place, given that this car is not equipped that way, is to have it used for administrative purposes, and so it'll be the chief's vehicle for right now.
What's he driving now?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it the equipment? Is this going to be equipped the same way?
Yes, exactly the same way.
So is the tar, that's being traded in the TARs?
No, it's not being traded in, it's being moved over to the detectives. That, the oldest vehicle will be no doubt sold, so.
How many miles does that vehicle have on it that the chief drives?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
And does he use that to go to and from home?
Yes.
Is that just the perk of the job, or?
Yes,
why do we do that?
that's has been standard compensation for the chief of police for as long as I've been here. It's standard in just about every municipality that the chief's afforded a vehicle.
Well, the problem's created because the detective needs a vehicle. Is that the reason?
Yes.
So the detective is the one, the need of the detective is what's stimulating this
Yes.
purchase. And right now, we're just moving them right.
We're
along.
shuffling the vehicles.
Shuffling the vehicles. Because the one the chief has is more suited to the detective? Is that what?
It is from the standpoint that it is a police interceptor as opposed to a standard vehicle.
I'll make a motion that we approve the award of a contract to C. Harper Inc. under the COSTARS program for the purchase of a Ford Explorer for $39,329.
I'll second.
Seconded, discussion, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Okay. Appointment of the Washington Financial Bank as the official bank depository for Peters Township.
At the reorganization meeting, I reported that PNC Bank would no longer afford the township free banking services, and that it was my recommendation that we look to Washington Financial Bank to serve as the township's depository. Having been familiar with the services they offer other school districts and municipalities, I was fairly confident that if in fact we would go out for competitive proposals, we would not find a proposal more favorable than theirs. And in point in fact, that the proposal that is put forth by Washington Financial meets or exceeds that which has been afforded to us by PNC Bank. Bottom line is all of your accounts will be in interest, all your monies will be held in interest-bearing accounts, and there will be no banking fees charged by Washington Financial. The one thing I would like to say, though, is one of our reluctance about moving our depository is this is not an inconsequential task, and Mr. Jaworski is going to be very busy in the next few months making that transition to that. So,
Do
but
we
it's
typically have a 3-year term, Paul?
it's my concern. The reason why I ask, the answer to that question is we appoint the depository each year, and I would reserve the right to appoint the depository each year. My concern was whether or not we could have free banking services. So when we put this agreement together, what we will do is hold them to a 3-year term with free banking and reserve the right each year to appoint or remove them as a depository. But it's to the township's benefit for them to commit to 3 years of free banking with interest-bearing accounts.
All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint Washington Financial Bank as the official bank depository for Peters Township on those terms and conditions that were stated by Mr. Lauer. They're contained in the letter that they sent us, dated, whatever. I don't even know if it's dated. January 10th.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. The discussion?
Please. I have on page 113 of the PDF,
113?
the PDF page, which is talking about the work perks.
Work purpose.
And I'm not comfortable that this approval by us encouraging the incentive to the employees and a $200 deposit to the individuals ought to be part of this agreement.
And I would concur.
I mean, if that's going to be the bank's practice, that's not anything that would concern me, but I don't know that,
But even if it is the bank's practice, I have a concern with it because it projects the wrong image, that we're doing something that favors employees beyond their regular compensation. So I don't, if they offer that to people, when people open accounts, that's fine, but we should not make that part of this agreement.
All right, so I'll redo my motion and just, as I said before, except delete the works provision.
I'll second that with the adjustment to remove the work perks option for employees of the township.
Thank you.
Other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So what do we do with that PNC certificate of deposit that we just voted on before? Shores, is that, we'll have to switch that over?
No, what you voted on was the signature cards for all of our accounts. It'll take us months to be able to move from PNC to Washington Financial. So in the meantime, there's going to be this transition period where you're going to see activity out of
I'll
both
incur a
things.
penalty if we're going to take a CD.
Just takes time to-
Yeah, I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
this is going to
Okay, award of a contract for various insurance coverages, including automobile, fire, and liability for 2020.
So the 2020 Peters Township operating budget includes an appropriation of $145,000 for various insurance coverages. If you will recollect, in 2018, we solicited proposals from various insurance companies for varieties of insurance, and normally we do this on a 3-year cycle. What our experience has been is that there are small changes in the premiums in each of the subsequent years. This year, however, the current carrier is proposing a 26% increase in our insurance premium. Campbell Insurance Agency, who is the broker of record for the township, solicited proposals from Zurich American, American Guarantee for coverage that is similar with an annual premium of $120,281. It's going to be my recommendation that, in fact, we place our insurance through Campbell Insurance Agency with Zurich American and American Guarantee for that lower premium.
There was a provision in that the rate's guaranteed as long as the township doesn't file a claim in excess of 35% of the premium.
And I'm not quite sure what has caused the increase in premium this year, but that kind of stipulation where if you use the insurance, your premium's going up is kind of standard in these commercial policies. So we don't normally have claims that are that high, so I would anticipate that if in fact we're below that amount, there's a rate guarantee for the following year.
I had a question about, maybe it's just, I'm naive about this, but if you look at, on this docket, I think it's 125, it talks about the law enforcement liability occurrence form, and it talks about the limits, but then it says coverage, occurrence form, defense costs, pay on behalf basis, civil rights violations, departmental authorized minimum money, and then it says vehicular hot pursuit, and then it says silent. What does that mean?
I can't answer that
It means if
question.
they're in hot pursuit and they kill somebody, we're not covered? I mean, I don't know what that
It's a
means.
silent letter, no military, or ED to see defense. It's also marked silent under ED to see defense.
Where do you see that at? The same page? Oh, I thought that was covered by civil rights violations. Okay. Oh, the next page? Yeah, I don't understand what that means. That means they're not providing us that coverage?
You know what, I'm going to have
And
to,
my question is, do we have that coverage now? I mean, is that something we need?
let me get a clarification on that for you for the next meeting. I don't know the answer to that question off the top.
I'm glad that Mr. Gerd brought that up. And the other question I had is, was Zurich American the only alternative that Campbell had? When he looked across what his,
I think that's what, I think that in fact is the case.
so would we do a motion to table this?
You could not do a motion to table it because otherwise Peters Township will be without insurance on February 1st.
We can always cancel it, right?
You could cancel it.
So,
Or we could look for additional insurance. I think we have to.
I think the prudent thing to do is to authorize that the
Well, I'll move
insurance
that we authorize the award of the various insurance contracts to Zurich Insurance.
And I'll get you clarification.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So you're still going to get back to us with
Yes.
that clarification
Yes.
at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, rejection of bids for Sandy Lane slip lining project.
We solicited bids for a slip lining project at Shady Lane. We're concerned because the low bidder has no experience in this area. And it's both Mr. Zamitis and my belief that it's important, given the nature of the project, although it may be small, it is complex, that we have someone with a demonstrated experience. So what my recommendation, Mr. Zamitis' recommendation, is that we reject all bids and we direct the manager to solicit bids from contractors who can demonstrate experience with slip lining.
So moved.
Why wasn't that requirement, they have prior experience doing that in the original bid?
I forgot to put it in. I mean, normally, Frank, on a job that's this small in scope, it's just not an issue that we've ever run into. More complex, bigger jobs, sure, we do that all the time, but,
How confident are we going to get somebody to bid it?
oh, we will. I mean, there's plenty of companies that have demonstrated experience in this. We just have to add that statement.
And you have them on this, Frank, you have them on this
There's
list.
qualified bidders on
You
it.
just can't, because we can't give it to the low bidder and then we don't want to have to.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so been moved and seconded. Discussion in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is a resolution authorizing the Township Manager to sign all traffic signal applications with PennDOT.
Now, one of the things you may have noticed in the last year or so, we have been to you with a number of resolutions authorizing the appropriate officials to sign traffic signals applications. We have another traffic signal out there, application that's requiring a signature, and rather than continue to do this, what Mr. Mudry has suggested is that we have a blanket resolution passed that enumerates our traffic signals and authorizes the manager to sign traffic signals applications. So that's what's in front of you tonight.
Move that we approve resolution number 01-04-20, authorizing the township manager to sign all traffic signal applications to PennDOT.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a clarification, these are all existing. This doesn't cover any new. Thank you.
Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Resolution amending the personnel manual to create job descriptions for the position of media specialist and fire captain. Amend job descriptions and eliminate a job description.
So what this resolution does is it creates a new job description for a media specialist. This is that position that we were talking about creating for the person who now serves as the volunteer coordinator on a part-time basis at the cable station. The other thing it does, it creates the position of fire captain. This is that supervisor, working supervisor within the fire department. When we create those job descriptions, it requires us to amend other job descriptions that describe who gets supervised by who and whom. So that's why you have these amended other job descriptions. And the other thing what we want to do is to eliminate the job description for the volunteer production coordinator, since no one will be served in that position. We have provided counsel in the docket a copy of each of the job descriptions along with the resolution. I had asked Mrs. Merrill to take a look at these, given her expertise in this area. She had made some recommendations that we think actually improve the descriptions. Those were sent out to council, and there's also a copy of those tonight. So it's my recommendation that council approve a resolution including the job descriptions as amended for those positions, as well as eliminating the job description for the volunteer production coordinator.
Mrs. Merrill, you got any additional comments on this?
No, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 010520, amending the personnel manual with the new and revised job descriptions and eliminated description as listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
favor?
I have a
Aye.
question. I have a question. I noticed in here, one of the required qualifications is possess and maintain valid Act 33 Child Abuse, Act 34 criminal history clearances. Do we do that in-house? I mean, are they required annually to supply that?
You're not required annually, but we have, it's easy to go online now and get those done.
So we have somebody check every year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Dave. I
No,
just
no problem.
wanted to
I
make
should
sure.
ask, I'm sorry. Okay, back to in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All righty, payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, I had the opportunity to spend some time reviewing the payroll report and the bills presented in the docket. As you all see, there are many more bills checks than usual due to the time of the year. There are several things that are kind of large payments. There is the balance on the purchase of the property for the fire station and a repayment from our fire escrow account on the unfortunate fire that Mr. Stiebel referenced earlier. I reviewed all the bills, found them to be in order, and moved to pay them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 7-0. Correspondence, any comments on that? Okay, reports, anyone want to discuss any of the reports?
I did have something for planning, Mr. Zook. You referenced in your report a mixed-use development at Galley and Water Dam. And earlier, maybe last year, I don't remember, North Strabane has been doing some development on Galley, and there are 2 commercial structures that are proposed further along that are actually in North Strabane. We don't have responsibility. But my question comes down to the implications for traffic control at the Galley and Water Dam intersection, which is an interesting intersection at best. My concern is that we've just gone through approval of a traffic plan for improvements, and if things continue to develop there, this to me seems almost more of a priority than some of the intersections that are being approved. And I just wondered what light you could shed on that.
I agree. That project has slowed down considerably here over the last several months. But if that land would develop, I think it's about 15 acres, they would have to mitigate traffic impacts probably at Galley and Water Dam, and a signal with turning lanes would have to go in. There will be many traffic improvements associated with that project.
But when Primrose School was going in, we had a lot of discussion about that intersection. And we, instead of a light there, we ended up with nothing.
Well, I think that's because PennDOT didn't approve it, wouldn't approve it, right?
Did not.
PennDOT required that if a traffic signal go in, there would have to be turning lanes. And given the scale of that development, you couldn't make sense out of that. I can't speak for PennDOT, but I can tell you if there's 15 acres of land developed, I will be shocked that they do not require a traffic signal with turning lanes.
Well, that's, I guess I'm disappointed because in retrospect, it's again, not looking forward, just looking at what exists now, and I'm concerned because that can be a very dicey intersection. Thank you for that.
Is that 15 acres where the hotel was, the guy came in, is that the same?
Yeah.
Correct.
I didn't realize it was 15 acres.
Approximately.
Ed, I had a question about that intersection. Coming north
Galley?
on Galley to the Primrose property, the left-hand turn-in to go into the child school says no left turns now?
It's a right in, right out only on Galley. That was
Right in, right out.
only on Galley. The full access to Primrose is only on Water Dam.
So everybody does have to go up to the intersection with Water Dam and make another left and then another left.
Correct. If they're coming north on Galley.
Okay.
I keep seeing in the paper that the grand construction project on the new 79 intersection on the new turnpike thing is going to, 2021, 22 is going to be completed. Have we given some serious serious consideration to Maple Lane, Hendersonville Road, and Murray Road being inundated.
Well, I can tell you there's been studies done with regard to that, but what I don't see is a commitment of funds to do those improvements, because I would agree with you. I think, you just have to travel on West McMurray Road right now to understand what the problem is, and it will only get much worse.
I was reminded of that when I came back on West McMurray about 4:30, I guess, the other day, and the traffic was backed up down beyond Oakwood.
Yeah, it's,
Mr. Lawler, is there a way that we can get some sort of a report and update on what their timeline is? I know you can try to go online and look it up, but it's a little confusing. Do you get anything from what do they call it, Southern Planning?
SBC, yeah.
That we could potentially
Well,
copies of?
I can get you a copy of that study, that's not a problem, and it talks about improvements that need to occur. But like I say, what I see lots of ideas, but I don't see anything showing up in the transportation improvement plan to actually make these things occur. So,
I mean,
let me, I'll try to follow up.
It'd be interesting to see, because they're going to be dumping traffic out onto Morganza Road, and you've got a binary decision to make, right or left.
Yeah.
Well, there's a project to review that Morganza intersection, because one of my clients has committed funds towards that project. It's not going anywhere, but they've already committed the funds.
I'm not worried about Morganza Road intersection, where the traffic goes after it hits that intersection.
Yeah, I think it's the connection back to 19.
Back
to the airport.
Back to Cansburg.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a question on engineering. If you don't mind.
Cheers.
You made a reference, Mr. Zemitis, to potentially contracting for engineering oversight of Pennsylvania American Water, and I presume potentially Columbia Gas. And I just wondered, is that something that you would request from our contract engineers, Gateway and LSSE, or are you looking to bid that, or?
We have a plan.
I did laugh when you,
Actually, what, we haven't gotten far enough along this to come back to council and ask for permission to do it, but I have had a brief discussion with Mr. Overcasher, the former Public Works Director. And the one thing about Pete is he's fairly well organized. He totally understands what our commitment is with regard to street openings, and he's available. And I think what we would like to be able to do is to employ his services. One of the things that when we met with the water company, I explained to them is that we are going to be paying closer attention given the scale of the amount of work we're doing, and that these costs that are associated, these additional costs associated with monitoring their performance will be passed back to them, and there'll be an expectation that they'll cover that expense. So.
Did it in writing?
Oh, I think it's in writing already because it's in our ordinance. So,
I just meant that they would actually.
well, I don't know whether that'll be an interesting thing, but as of right now, they understand our concern. And like I said, what I wanted to do within the next couple of weeks is to sit down with Mr. Overcashier and see whether or not there's a way we can work that out with him.
Thank you.
Well, the condition that the water company's contractor has left township residents with, we have third world type roads out there right now.
And I don't disagree with you.
And
We don't
I
disagree.
think, we need to understand what went wrong and make sure we have remedies in it that this isn't done in perpetuity for their road work. But
We did have a meeting with them, was that 2 weeks ago?
And Mark and I both have a shared opinion about what has gone wrong, and I think our remedy is to provide the oversight that the water company is not providing for their contractors. There's, even this last week, even after that meeting, if you've had cause to be on Willhaven, once again, Willhaven has been closed without notice to the township. A township road closed by a contractor without notice to the township. That can't happen.
It was closed every morning last week.
Yeah, that can't happen.
This was after the discussion about it.
Yes.
Closed
Okay.
at night, too.
If we have Anything under miscellaneous you need to talk about?
I would want to turn it over to Mr. Zamitis. He could tell you a little bit about the 2020 road code paving program.
Okay. I have a supplemental report that should be in your docket, and you'll probably recognize the format. It's something that I've been providing for the past couple of years. It just basically gives us a snapshot of where we are with respect to our latest three-year plan, a proposed list of candidates for resurfacing for this year. Again, that's based on pavement condition index, age, traffic volume, a number of factors there, proximity to other projects, proximity to utility work. So again, we've come up with that list. We're going to start to prepare plans and specs for a bid opening in March, like we typically do, trying to open bids and award by the first meeting in April. I've included in there a nice graph of the age of our roads in different categories. Basically, if anybody has any questions at this point, I'd be more than willing to entertain those. I would add that based on this year's budget, we're going to do like we've done in years past. We're going to do a resurfacing program for about $1.5 million, and then the remaining $150,000 will be dedicated towards the rejuvenator and a crack sealing program.
Could we put up page 370 of the, that's the map that, it's one of two maps that Mark has.
We could do it the old school way. Yeah. Mark, you want to lay that out?
Well, the point being, you've got in the second map, which you call pavement condition index, you've got yellows, you've got reds, and you've got clouds around several streets, and Willhaven happens to be one of them. What is it that we're trying to say there? Because they're not on our township duty list.
If you look at the cloud up in the upper right-hand corner there, Mr. Lewis, just kind of a legend. The black cloud, ironically, is for Pennsylvania American Water Company project proposed for 2020. So like Willhaven's a holdover from 2019, but that will be milled and resurfaced by the water company in 2020. So we try to track, like, you'll see on there PennDOT projects, Columbia projects, PA American projects, any project that we're aware of, we try to overlay on this map so we get an idea of where we're going to run into them, roads we should avoid, roads we should combine forces with them. It just kind of gives an overall picture. So that's why that's on that map.
No attempted irony there, was there? Okay, yeah, so, I understand.
Is Thompson though on there?
Yep.
Yes,
It's horrible.
that is circled in the big black cloud. So that will be a water company project here this spring. And we've worked out an arrangement with the water company and the gas company where they are going to pay us their share of the paving costs, and we're going to pave it with our contractor this summer. We feel that that'll give us a better product.
That sounds good to me.
Mark, did you get a copy of the letter from Mr. Scavo regarding Old Washington Road?
Like this?
I did not.
We did not get copies of that.
No, I didn't see it.
He sent some, it looks like it only went to Mr. Lewis, Mr. Pence, or,
I guess he only sent it to the at-large council members.
yeah, it has some pictures of,
Yeah.
how the space down there in Washington, this side of the road.
I just gave them a copy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it should be addressed, you can see a little bit.
Okay. We'll take a look.
Hey, when we do the is the rejuvenating program, is that like a glass fiber, like a fiber thing?
No, it is, it's a petroleum-based
Shot and chip
chemical product.
almost, but
It's like a sealer penetrator oil that soaks into the asphalt, and the intent is that it brings back some of the pliability that's lost over time as the asphalt oxidizes.
Cecil was using some sort of a thing like that, but it had fibers in it, or not fiberglass, it had some sort of fibers.
There's fiber reinforced paving nowadays that's used.
Does that make it any more, like, last any longer?
That's what they'll tell you it does. I haven't seen that. the assistant engineer, Jason, has worked with that before, and he's not been impressed.
Okay.
So, I'm not saying it's a bad product, we just haven't seen any benefits from it, so.
Okay? Anything else? Is that it, Mark? That's it? Okay. Council workshop on February 3rd?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could encourage you to do something before that meeting, one of these we're going to be talking about is the intersection of Venetia Road and Bebout Road. If you could travel on Venetia Road coming from McCombs towards Bebout Road and pay attention to what that looks like. I'll have a video that's been taken from a police car, but I think it might be better if you see that for yourself, because we're talking about that intersection and what improvements do or don't need to be done there.
All right, and the township tour?
Is going to be on Saturday, March 28th. So if anybody has anything they would like to see included on that, let me know.
What time are we starting?
We're starting it at 8 o'clock. That's what we normally do. We'll be done before noon. We're at noon.
When we talked about it, you said you may want to include a couple things other than just roads.
We're going to include, just as we did last year, I think that worked out well. We're going to spend some time looking at sites. And so I'll tell you what I'll attempt to do before the next meeting. We already have a list of things we would like to share with council. And let me get you that list, and then you can react to that and let me know whether there's anything we need to add.
Okay. Anything else in miscellaneous?
I did have a question, Mr. Lowell. A while back, Freedom Transit came to us and explained about the bus routes, and we had talked, I think Mr. Curry suggested it, and I thought it was a good idea that we try to figure out how to potentially help or potentially help them identify where stops could be. Did you get any traction with that?
And I have reached back to them and explained that to them, and they were to get back to me, and they have not.
Okay.
So let me do that one more time, because I do think there's value in that.
Okay, I appreciate that. One other thing, just miscellaneous, the Citizens Police Academy, next session starts March 3rd, and I believe they're still taking applications.
Yes, they
So
are.
if anybody's interested, it's really
It's a great program.
a very great program.
Okay. Anybody have anything for the next agenda?
No, but Paul, I will not be here for the road tour. I'm sure you'll be
Okay.
disappointed.
I do have two things for the next agenda. Mr. Zook, will you be ready for the Ag Committee update then, or are you still working on that?
I'm still working on that. That's a late 2020 project.
Okay. Will we be having Parks and Rec quarterly report?
I think what they have decided to do is to spread those out a little bit further, but yes, they're coming back to you very shortly.
Okay, because when they come, could they bring a summary of last year's? We used to get a report that showed total participation by the different, the children by the different sports programs.
You're going to get that as part of the annual report, and that's coming to you next meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Anything else?
Don't forget that next agenda.
Good in order, go to the order. Adjourn. We have an
Brief
executive
executive
session with a legal and personnel matter.